IBC Limited International for innovations in education and technology. IBC Processing, a private mentor. The IBC Smart Card and Scanner will have the ability to deliver requested information or data, regardless of an individual's deficiencies in understanding, based solely on that individual's personalized behavior. What is IBC Limited International? IBC Limited International is a non-profit research and development corporation which specializes in innovation of technology and education. Prospective beneficiaries include educational systems, corporations, and government. Challenges in education. Students have many learning styles which require complementary teaching styles. Diversity issues relating to sex, race, religion, disability, and economics. Educators feel the pressures of making the connection, with each student having varied learning styles in a common setting. A need for a correct chemistry to make the link for learning. Academic penetration to the masses has become shallow. A paradigm shift from local competition to global competition. A national demand for reaching high expectations as students, teachers, and educational systems are shadowed by suppression of resources and funding.
How IBC processing works. Initially, the curriculum is presented. Then student interaction begins, followed by behavioral analysis, which yields a curriculum that is tailored specifically to that individual student. And then the cycle repeats itself. Benefits to the students. Students receive one-on-one mentoring for academics. Student choice permits correct chemistry alignment. Learning resistance is minimized, resulting in higher academic potential, which allows students to compete globally. Benefits to the teacher. Individualized tutoring results in deep academic penetration for all students. Increased time for higher impact discussion and debate allows for greater involvement and topic retention. Graphic analysis permits trend identification and remedial corrective action. Benefits to the administrators. Increased curriculum compliance. Decreased discipline problems. Increased resource efficiency.
Advantages of IBC processing for students with special needs, including students of special education, students that are at risk, and students exposed and integrated in a bilingual or multilingual environment. These advantages are self-pacing, recall, and remediation, and most importantly, one-on-one mentoring. The objective of IBC processing is to transform disadvantaged students into advantaged students. The first section of the tutor panel is the RLA Smart Card Holder. This is the area where the student inserts their smart card at the beginning of the lesson. The second section of the tutor panel is the Audio Personality Entertainment Tutors. This allows the child the ability to select the personality type of the mentor they wish to have teach the lesson at that particular moment. The third section of the tutor panel are the mentor notes. This is a touch testing panel. Mentor notes are used to enhance the base curriculum. The student is questioned to ensure that their understanding of the subject matter is progressing as expected. If the student's understanding is not progressing as expected, the RLA will display additional mentor notes in a regressive fashion as necessary until understanding is achieved. When questions appear on the educational monitor, mentor note squares will light up. If no squares are pressed, then indicator lights will flash continuously until a square is pressed. This will be apparent at the teacher's console. Note: for lower grades, the squares will be color-coded. There are different enhancement images per square with voice-accompanied mentorship. The fourth section of the tutor panel is the touch testing panel. The student will use these touch squares to answer the questions presented by the mentor. If no squares are pressed, then indicator lights will flash continuously until a square is pressed. This will be apparent at the teacher's console. Note: For lower grades, the squares will be color-coded.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mr. Monty. I am the President and CEO of IBC Limited International Research Center. This evening we're going to see a presentation of the new IBC processing science, which took over 19 years to develop by myself and a team. I'd like to introduce to you some of the senior staff members of IBC Limited International Research Center. To my left is Bill Doogie.
Hello, I am the Senior Administrator for the company. I perform all the administrative functions for the company.
To the left of Bill is Peter James.
Hello, Peter James. I'm the Senior Systems Analyst responsible for overseeing all the business analytical activities of IBC-LI.
To my right coming in is Michael Sanso.
I'm the Senior Educational Administrator. I've been teaching languages and psychology for many years in many private schools. At this point I'm teaching in a public school, and I'll be in charge of education for the company.
And to Michael Sanso's right is Ram Diamani.
Hello, my name is Ram V. Mani. I am the Executive Educational Administrator for IBC-LI. I will be explaining how IBC processing works in educational arena. All of you are in for a treat and enjoy. Hello, my name is Ram V. Mani. I am the Executive Educational Administrator for IBC Limited International. IBC stands for Integrated Behavior Correspondence Data Structures. What is it? It is sort of an electronic representation of human behavior. You could call it an electronic DNA. This has been made possible by the creative and original thinking of Mr. Matthew Monty, the President and Founder of IBC-LI. This is a very unique presentation. What you are about to hear and see is very unique. At places it will be unbelievable. At places it will be ununderstandable. In any event, we are here to answer all of your questions, meet with you if necessary, and explain it. We can do it. Before the formal presentation of IBC processing in the education arena begins, I would like to introduce to you Dr. Ibrahim Perez, who is one of the most well-respected senior members of IBC-LI educational team. Dr. Perez got his PhD in education in 1955 from Havana. In 1977, he got his Masters of Arts from Montclair State College in Montclair, New Jersey. In 1981, he got his PhD in psychology from Columbia University, New York. He has been an educator all his life, and he has done exemplary service to us and to the community.
We're about to interview Dr. Perez, a famous, well-respected educator in the Ocean County area. And Dr. Perez, I would like to ask you a few questions about our project on IBC. What impact do you think that it will have on education in general?
In general, as a formal comment, I may tell you that after being an educator for over 30 years in the United States, Cuba, and Spain, it is the first time that I have seen an educational plan that really meets the interest for educators as well as students. It motivates, and also with the mentorship involvement, seems to me as a great plus for education. It may one day lead the way in the educational field and be an important discovery because it's high technology. Also, by comparison, I will say that this system in the actual educational level in this country might be as education the same thing as electricity discovered in the last century. It is a comparison for that aspect.
Very good. Do you believe that it will have an effect on, or will stop, or at least slow down the dropout, especially in the groups, the minority groups? How do you feel about that?
Definitely yes. It may help very well to the advanced and interest of minority students, especially that student that becomes disenchanted, frustrated, and feel to be a further dropout. It could happen in any school system nowadays in this state and in this country at large. Let me tell you that at present, we are trying to get the support from the Hispanic community, not only the leaders and the education administrators, but teachers and students as well, especially in the states of New Jersey and Florida. We contemplate the idea of expansion for this project to be focused and to influence bilingual as well as bicultural communities throughout the entire country.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your ideas.
Hello. As I spoke to you earlier, Education Paradigm Shift by IBCLI is all about the creation of electronic DNA. We all have heard about what DNA is and how all of the human behavior and the parameters are identified and the human characteristics are identified by DNA. If we can picture an electronic version of the human behavior that can somewhat be compared to the DNA of a human being, and that's what IBC processing is all about. So we have rightfully termed this presentation a paradigm shift, and I am the Executive Educational Administrator, and I will walk you through every one of these slides. We at IBC-LI, we have a vision. We want to educate students as never done before. We want to create a very pleasing and motivating environment which really maximizes the students' learning efficiency. We have a goal and we also have an objective. We want to make sure that integrated behavior correspondence data structures will be used for educating students all across America and perhaps the world. And our objective is to enhance the current education which is not at the moment anyway measuring important attributes such as the personality, aptitude, intellect, and motivation. However, we at IBCLI, we intend measuring each one of these parameters and many more, and thereby giving every student electronic private tutoring as needed. But before we go into the formal presentation of the paradigm shift, it is good to reflect a little bit on what today's situation is. There is really a lot of difficulty in establishing the student-teacher chemistry, which all of us at IBCLI believe is the single most important component in the learning potential of a student. And also, the education is mostly monolithic and inflexible in nature. Very large quantities of data is passed on to students in a time-driven curriculum. Naturally, some students they excel, many pass, and probably an equal number drop out. Student motivation could definitely be improved, and there is always peer pressure by ratio. Everybody in a class, they rank themselves in relation to somebody else, and they decide to themselves either they are going to open their mouths and ask their questions or keep quiet. Mark Twain, once he said, "I would rather be silent and be thought of as a fool than to open my mouth and prove that I am one." It looks as if he was thinking about today's classrooms. The true potential of the students usually is very difficult to measure, and this is the current situation. Now we wonder, how did we get here? You see, teaching is still accomplished by a very static process. Either we have a flat chalkboard, or it doesn't matter, you may have a personal computer in front of you, but information is presented to you on a flat screen in a format that you read and try to understand and learn. The cultural differences, of course, are more difficult to accommodate, and yet they increase every day. America is really a melting pot of all civilizations around the globe, and yet today's educational system is not taking that into account. There are varying adaptations to a rapidly changing technology. Not even your hardware and software stays the same for even 6 months. The difficulty in evaluating some of the original assumptions which may no longer be valid. All of us have ideas, either as teachers or as students, as to how a subject matter must be taught or how I should learn. And these assumptions, they are no longer valid because the environment in which the learning takes place is so dynamic. And bell curves and student grouping are widely prevalent. Either I am gifted and talented, or I am average, or I am mediocre, or I need special care. Any which way I am grouped. And performance is usually measured by static testing, such as IQ or SAT. Howard Gardner, in his book on the multiple intelligence theory, he says that normally the student testing takes place and it measures two components of a student's intelligence. This could be logical/mathematical intelligence and linguistic intelligence. But there are 5 other components according to Howard Gardner. These are interpersonal intelligence, introspective intelligence, which is the ability to be with myself and think through a problem. The bodily intelligence, how my body reacts to a given situation or how conditioned it is. Most athletes and players are of this caliber. Spatial intelligence, the ability to visualize an object in your mind in a three-dimensional network. And also, the musical intelligence is also a very key component of one of the 7 intelligence components he talks about. He always has maintained the position that just because a person is not doing well in languages or logical mathematical analysis, it does not mean that he should be failing in other areas of intelligences in which a person could really excel. What are the available non-IBC-LI options to solve the problem? Of course, we can revamp the current educational system. And with spending a lot of money, we can figure out what can be done with what we have. Of course, this involves a lot of input-output measurements. We have to design statistical experiments. We have to do the data analysis that we gather. And hopefully, by studying all this data and coming to conclusions, maybe an option can be chosen. And then, once you implement the chosen option, we have to go back to step 1 after evaluating the results, so that we can do continuous improvement and certainly hope for the best. Or, we at IBC-LI, we believe we can shift the paradigm. Paradigm is one of the most misunderstood terminologies, yet it is in common parlance every day. What is the paradigm? And one must understand why our paradigms shifted. Paradigm is simply a domain where a set of current procedures are carried out with a current set of rules. And a given paradigm is usually satisfactory for the now related problems. It also usually solves many previously known problems. Of course, it generates in time a set of unsolved problems in the paradigm domain, which is a characteristic of every paradigm. And as the time goes on, the unsolved problems, they become irritant, unbearable, or both within the current paradigm domain. And you must really understand this point here. A new paradigm, such as what we are proposing at IBC-LI, almost always encounters resistance. One must drop the resistance factors and be open-minded about it to understand what IBC-LI is all about. I'm going to give you some typical examples of paradigms and their shifts. Ptolemy came up with the geocentric model in 150 AD just to predict the calendar. However, because he did not take into account the exact number of days in a year, over a period of time, seasons started shifting. As you could see, Copernicus in 1543 AD came up with a heliocentric model where he said, if I have sun as the center of our universe, all the models and the movement of planets and stars, they fit better. However, Copernicus, he did not have the mathematical equations to put his theory into practice. It was later done by Kepler with his 3 laws of planetary motion. But you could see that for almost 1500 years, the geocentric model was the way to go. And the list goes on. But I would really like to point out what Einstein did here. He came up with E equals mc squared equation, where he proved that the equivalence of energy and mass, and the c being the velocity of light, which happens to be 186,000 miles per second. And recently you may have heard that a scientist at MIT slowed the velocity of light down to an ordinary 38 miles per hour. So even as you and I speak, the only constant, one of the two constants known to mankind, the velocity of light has been changed. It is very important to notice Einstein here because all of Einstein's experiments were thought experiments. He had enough logical thinking mind with which he saw all of the models he was proposing in his mind, and subsequent to that each one of them were proved to be correct. I want to mention to you here that Mr. Matthew Monty, who is the founder and president of IBC-LI, also a great thinker, has performed not alone the necessary thought experiments, but he has come up with the behavior science model. It is good to know who are the paradigm shifters. Usually it is an outsider unhappy with the current situation. Naturally, Mr. Monty fits the description perfectly. A young person coming into the current system. If I told you some of the age groups of people working in IBC-LI, you will really be shocked. A mature person wanting to learn a new discipline. Surprisingly, a maverick. We are proud to say that IBC-LI can really boast of all these four types of people as a part of our team. Okay, now we know what the situation is, how we got there, what is paradigm shift is all about, what is the solution. This is a lighthouse of hope, an IBC model classroom which envisions the quantification of students' behavior. The behavior scientists, they have been attempting to do this practically all their lives. But Mr. Matthew Monty, with his insightful research into human behavior, has come up with a methodology to quantify the human behavior. It is also important that the classroom establishes the proper student-teacher and student-student interactions, and IBC-LI classroom is designed with this in mind. We are providing customized electronic private tutors or mentor notes to enhance the student-teacher chemistry and, most importantly, diminish the resistance factor. It is not alone important to increase the chemistry component, but what if I don't want to learn? We find out that as the chemistry between the teacher and the student goes up, the resistance to learning goes down. A classroom layout very conducive to learning. Enhancement of student success is kept in mind in the design of IBC classroom. It is a powerful tool for teaching because it does not displace the teacher. Teacher is still the central focal point of IBC model classroom. And it is definitely a new technology for the 21st century, and we all can benefit from it. The next two slides will really show you how does IBC-LI do it. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, it provides an electronically synthesized DNA concept at the core of IBC processor. So when the student sits in front of the IBC learning console, the student acceptance takes place either by image scanning or smart card scanning. Then the live behavior analysis by reason logic analyzer takes place. The student specific keyboard analysis also takes place in real time. The establishment of behavior library comprising curriculum and behavior model is at the heart on the server side. Instantaneous risk analyzer interface will determine if the keyboard action by the student is permissible or not. Continuous quantification of students' personality, aptitude, intelligence, motivation, etc. takes place all the time. Now, based on all of these parameters, student identification, his behavior parameters, and the keyboard entry, real-time information retrieval from the behavior library in the form of multiple mentor notes takes place. The student can retrieve one mentor, many mentors, few mentors, and he can choose the audio and video of the mentors as he or she desires. Progressively enhanced private tutoring by student subject mentor notes. It is important to note here that when I am sitting in front of the console as a student, a question is asked of me, and if I am unable to answer, the behavior library automatically understands my difficulty and gives me increasing levels of private tutoring to make sure that the understanding takes place. And if the understanding does not take place, then the teacher, of course, is notified. And all the while, the teacher will be monitoring the progress of every student as the progress is taking place, which is not present in today's education. The teacher can monitor the entire classroom at a glance and find out who is learning what and to what extent. The IBC classroom and learning console will definitely establish superior student-teacher chemistry, because a student chooses the mentors and voices he or she wants. Remember what I told you about Mark Twain? We have created a fear-free environment in which to ask questions and to learn without anyone else even knowing that such a question has happened in my head. We at IBCLI believe that there is only one stupid question in the world, is the one which is not asked. And the teacher, of course, can get one-on-one and or round table discussions as a group. If she or he, the teacher, finds out that there are many students who are having difficulty understanding a given topic, she or he can immediately call a round table discussion, gather all the students to the center of the classroom, discuss the topic a little bit more, and ask the students to go back to the learning console. And of course, there are live and time dependent trends for each student. This is so important in understanding how the learning is taking place, so that in a given subject matter, the way student has reacted from day one and the way the learning has been taking place as far as this student is concerned is very specific and retrievable. And this feature allows the teacher to go to each and every student and find out where exactly the student needs the help. And of course, the IBC Learning Console itself can be either personal computer based and or a server based interaction based on economy. And all of our personal computers and servers are using today's available technology. So, where is IBCLI today? Well, the theoretical relationship between behavior parameters and the cell block identification is completed after 19 years of research by Mr. Monty. The IBC processor prototype is being worked on and is expected to be completed in the near future. We are gearing up for the control study to be completed over the next 2 years. It will involve at least 500,000 students, perhaps 1 million or 1.5 million. We need the inputs from all these students to fine-tune the mathematical model. As you already saw in the very first shot of this presentation, all of the key personnel are in place. Well, what to do next? IBCLI would like you to participate in the Education Program Control Study. This is where we need your support and help the most. You could volunteer your students to answer questions in an IBCLI console for a few minutes. You can definitely allow your staff to share their teaching expertise, because we want to find out what is it that the teachers do the best and how this experience can be translated in the form of mentor notes. You can help integrate the current curricula with IBC processor based on the control study. You can decide what type of curricula you have, what is it that you would like to teach using IBC Learning Console, so that you can actually experiment 1, 2 or perhaps more subjects to be taught using IBC Learning Console concept. You can definitely bring your elite status to support the creation of this new paradigm. After all, this is nothing but a paradigm shift, and this cannot happen without your support. You can assist IBCLI with the funding requests later if needed, as applicable to education. After all, IBCLI is a research and development center, and all our ideas have to be put into practice, and the hardwares and softwares have to be created. IBCLI intends to refine the current behavior model and mass produce IBC processors for use within 2 years. Ladies and gentlemen, in the very beginning of the program, I mentioned to you that you are all in for a treat. And here is where the treat begins. All through the presentation, we at IBCLI have created a picture in your minds. What we are attempting to do here is the way IBCLI is envisioning how their IBC processor will be used in various types of industries as well as education. This is a home PC environment, and now the console you see spinning is for corporate security. This is the plan of our classroom layout in education, and also here you see the container that is spinning around, which is a part of freight and cargo handling and security. And here is our IBC Learning Console classroom layout. Students are sitting in front of the learning consoles. They are logging on, and the teacher is centrally located. She has 4 monitors. She can have a complete control of the situation at all times, and this will be explained later further. Here is a picture taken of a student sitting in front of the IBC Learning Console, and I am very proud to introduce to all of you that the picture that you see here is that of Greg Fodor. Young as he looks, he is the senior most staff member that we have at IBCLI, and we are extremely proud to have him. Remember that paradigm shifters slide I showed you a few minutes ago? Who are the paradigm shifters? I did mention to you that a young person coming into the paradigm without any preconceived notion. And we at IBCLI, we are extremely proud to have Greg Fodor as the youngest member of our team, who is in charge of the entire hardware and software production of IBCLI. He has actually sat in front of the console in this simulation, and his picture is being taken by the TrueFace Myros imaging software, and the IBC server has granted him the access. Once the IBC console grants access to a student, all of the behavior parameters of the student, they are evaluated by the IBC processor. There are 500 parameters that define a student, and each one of these spikes, they represent a parameter, of which we will show just 4 of the 3007 cell blocks that define a human being. We are showing 4 typical cell blocks and their unique identifiers, which is a proprietary component of IBC processing. The cell block information, along with the keyboard analysis, are coming into the heart of IBC processor. I must mention to you at this point and introduce Mr. Lee. He's a senior hardware engineer and network specialist working in conjunction with Greg Fodor on the creation and development of IBC processor and all related IBC hardware. This particular motherboard, it can be plugged into any PCI slot of today's available computers. Now this can be connected to the network. You can see the cable coming out, and it goes to the various routers, servers, hubs, and this is the network as envisioned by IBCLI today. And this could be one of many different configurations that can be made available to you to suit your needs. When access is granted to the student, this is what is really taking place behind the scenes. The student sits in front of the console, logs on. His A and B block of data has already been processed by the processor in the IBC Learning Console, and this information is sent via the IBC Smart Cable through the router, and the router subsequently sends the information through IBC Smart Cable again into the IBC database server. Here is another component, very important component of IBC processing, where the A block behavior cell block data is being evaluated by the IBC processor inside the IBC server. And now it accepts the A block data. Now the processor must accept the B block data as well. So now it decodes the B block data. Okay, the B block data also has been accepted, which means that now the IBC processor in the IBC database server sends an authorization, encrypted authorization code packet via the IBC smart cable through the router and once again via the IBC smart cable all the way into the IBC learning console. At this point, the student has been accepted because the IBC database server did not see anything wrong with this information, and it will grant access to the IBC learning console. You must understand at this point a very significant portion of the way IBC processor works. This A and B cell block movement takes place in real time all the time. Let us say I am a student sitting in front of the IBC learning console. I have logged on. But now, as I start interacting with the system, as a student, mentor notes are given to me, questions are given to me, learning is taking place. That means all of my A and B block cell block data starts dynamically moving up and down. And this encrypted packet of information is traveling back and forth faster than you can imagine. And most importantly, when I log out of the system as a student, the IBC database server knows what were the last cell block identifying parameters were, so that when I log on the next time to continue my learning, the database server instantaneously knows without further help where I am at the moment in terms of learning, what type of mentor notes do I need, and how frequent do I need them. Therefore, there is absolutely no slowdown of the learning process. Of course, I explained to you a few minutes ago that there are A blocks and B blocks, and these cell blocks, they move all the time dynamically as long as a student is interacting with the IBC processor. What is really happening here is that I am sitting in front of the console, I am reacting to the systems, the mentor notes, the questions, the confusion that I have, the confusion that I do not have, and the behavior science which has defined these cell blocks. This is a proprietary part of the entire IBC processing. It knows algorithmically how to move each one of these cell blocks. I know this is exactly where you will have thousands of questions, and unfortunately, the proprietary nature of our business prevents us from revealing this highly secretive and sensitive information. However, as the cell blocks move up and down and up and down and up and down, all through the learning process, the IBC database server keeps track of all of these movements and then retains the values for subsequent use. As you could see from the layout of IBC classroom, we at IBC LI, we have taken great pains and care in designing the classroom of the future. It is very important that when a student is given an opportunity to learn from multiple mentors, where he has a choice of both audio and video, that the noise does not become a problem to the other students wanting to learn at the same time. The IBC Learning Console Cubicle is designed with noise-proof materials as well as special noise suppression systems. As the students are interacting with the IBC Learning Console, you could see the teacher in the center of the classroom. There are 4 monitors in the center of the classroom, with which the teacher at a glance will be able to monitor the progress of all of the students simultaneously. What is interesting about IBC Learning Console concept is that while in an average classroom it is really impossible for a teacher to find out which student is at which learning potential, in our IBC Learning Console layout, the teacher can monitor every student all along the learning process. You see those 4 monitors in the center can be divided into multiple segments, and each segment representing a given student. And these of course are color-coded segments. This segment can be green, amber, or red. When the learning is taking place, normally, all these segments will be green. So the teacher, when she looks at the screens, she will know that the entire class is learning properly. And let us say, I as a student, I am not able to answer some other questions asked of me, and I am having difficulties. I need more and more mentor notes. My segment in teacher's monitor will no longer be green, but it will have become amber. So at that instant, the teacher knows that a few students have started having difficulty in learning. Now, as more mentor notes are given to me, there are only 2 things that are going to happen. I will either understand what is being taught to me or I will not. Let us assume that with the type of mentor notes given to me, I can perfectly understand what is it that I am supposed to be learning. My segment in the teacher's monitor will no longer be amber, it will turn back to green. So the teacher immediately knows that I no longer need a possible help from her. However, if on the other hand I am having increasing difficulties in understanding the subject matter and I am not able to answer the questions that is asked of me, my segment in the teacher's monitor will definitely turn red. The teacher knows instantaneously that I am no longer able to understand what is being taught. So therefore, she can communicate with me one-on-one via the console without each one of us having to meet or leave our cubicles, communicate and find out what is happening. If she is not able to solve the problem in this manner, of course she can come to my cubicle or she can ask me to come to her and then help me out further. And let us hypothetically assume that there are 20 students in the class and 20 of them are green to begin with, and suddenly 15 stay amber, and of the 15, 12 become red. The teacher immediately understands that the majority of the class is having difficulty understanding the subject matter. At this point, she can announce to the class, "Hey class, come on over here to the center. I am calling in a round table session. Let us go over the subject matter once again. I want to talk to each one of you to find out where is it that you are having difficulties." So these type of round table sessions, they accomplish 2 things in our classroom layout. A, it promotes the social interactions which is so vital to the learning process. And B, the teacher also knows when she should get the students together. And this way, you could see that the learning takes place at the most important manner. The students are learning. Well, the students have been sitting in front of the IBC console learning, or this could be a research environment in which you may be doing some very sensitive research for the government or highly proprietary information. Access has been granted because you are an authorized user. But let us see what happens if somebody tries to break into our IBC system. See, the cable that you see in the background is an IBC smart cable. And as you would see in a second, somebody wanting to tap into your network, and then they want to tap into all of the transactions that is happening between the learning console or the IBC processor console and the central server. Now, as soon as this person comes along and grabs the cable, immediately the IBC processor in the server, it detects certain abnormal phenomena happening. It is asking for the new A and B block information of the new entry, and not finding it, it is going to cause a failure and notify security. And the person who made the hostile entry can be arrested actually by location.
Now we are looking for your participation in our control study. We are looking for funds and grants because the actual state of education needs to move ahead all through this country. That may remove the obstacles of present and old-fashioned habits in the field of education.
About 2 centuries and 2 decades ago, Thomas Jefferson, the 3rd president of our nation and one of the founding fathers, he said, "I have a dream." He believed that the entire humanity was created equal. And in that equality, he saw the preservation of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness to be the birthright of every human being. Ironically, in the middle of 20th century, all of us heard a passionate cry of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. He also said, "I have a dream." Which dream was he talking about? The preservation of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Which proves that the dream that Thomas Jefferson had has not yet become a reality. We at IBCLI, we don't have a dream, but we do have a vision. Our vision is to make the dreams of Thomas Jefferson and Martin Luther King into a reality. And we can do this with your help and your participation in what we are asking you to do. I hope every one of you watching this program will stand united with IBCLI in pursuing this noble goal of educating everybody in America the way it has never been done before. Thank you.